Welcome. This is the Deal by Me podcast, where we ask guests to tell us your story. Hello there. This is Dr. James W. Smith, your host. We seek to transform lives by encouraging and inspiring. Someone encouraged and inspired this host, a former lawyer, gambler, inmate, and his life was transformed. The same can happen to you. When you listen to any of the Deal by Me podcasts, please support this podcast with a donation or a monthly recurring amount for as little as $3. If you're viewing any of the podcasts on YouTube, please subscribe. To supporters of this podcast, we say thank you. Check out my encouraging, inspiring, and transforming books. I'm available for speaking engagements, in person and virtual seminars. So please contact me through my website, www.dealbyme.com. I have with me Patrick Williams, who is a passionate and inspiring public speaker, consultant, writer, artist, independent scholar, and visionary educator. He says that creativity is one of our collective superpowers. As children, we are effortless in our abilities to tap into this superpower. Often, as we get older, we feel that we lose connection to our childhood creative capabilities. The good news is that creativity cannot be lost. Misplaced, maybe, but never lost. What an exciting guest I have with me. And I'm trusting and believing that you will enjoy this interview. Uh, Patrick, would you share a little bit with listeners to this podcast about yourself and where you've been interviewed from?
Certainly. Glad to do that, Dr. Smith. I'm happy to be here. I've been a lifelong artist. I've been inside education for many years, not so much now. My wife and I have had a nonprofit for 25 years, almost 24 years this year. And it's an arts education, healing, and investigative research nonprofit. And and I'm coming from Omaha, Nebraska, which was or is my hometown, but my wife and I just relocated a few years ago. We hadn't lived here for quite a few decades, actually, maybe
Okay.
40 years. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with listeners today. I read your profile, and I have to admit, very interesting story you share. I am struck, intrigued by what you do. And so, as I talk with you, uh, a lot about the creativeness that you share and talk about. So, my first question to you is, could you tell listeners of this podcast what you consider creativity to be?
Sure. That's that's not the easiest question to answer because creativity is very, very mysterious in a way. We we know when it's happening, but sometimes it's challenging to get it started, to get it back into our lives. Like you said, I have talked a lot over the years about how easy it is for us as children to be creative. And and that's actually our natural way to learn. So creativity is activities where we find out about ourselves and what we're feeling and what we're thinking, and we put it into a new form. It
Mm,
could be music, it could be drawing, it could be dance, it could be architecture, it could be a play, a poem, or also creativity is not just for the arts. We use creativity every day, and I call that general creativity. So there's a quality to that creativity that isn't unusual, but we seldom recognize it.
Mhm.
We when we let's say we're driving to work and we've driven the same route over and over and over again, maybe for years, and we think, you know what, I want to go a different way. That's a
Mhm.
little bit of creativity. And sometimes something unusual happens, so hopefully good, and you discover maybe a new park or a new place to eat or a jazz lounge that you want to check out. So on this new route that you discovered by using your general creativity, all kinds of interesting things can happen.
Mm.
So we're when we use our creativity, we find ourselves experiencing life in a new way, and we start to feel uh, different connections to that particular. If it's poetry, then we start to understand more about ourselves, and then when we understand more about ourselves, we understand more about our friends and our family
Mm.
and the people who we work with. So
Okay.
creativity is super remarkable. It is a superpower. It's super
Uh,
remarkable and powerful.
I hear you. And I am amazed because I never thought about it in the way that you are sharing it
Hmm.
with us today. And you say in your profile that I got a chance to read and just thought it was so very interesting and intriguing. One of the things that you say is the good news is that creativity cannot be lost.
Hmm.
Misplaced, maybe, but never lost. Talk about that a little bit for us.
Sure, glad to. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So I have over the years, I didn't set out trying to study creativity, but what I started to notice when I would be in schools or teaching classes on my own, both children of a certain age and adults specifically would have a hard time starting to discuss creativity or starting to be asked to explore creativity. And I wondered, what is that? Why do people feel that? What's going on? The more I looked into this idea and the more I studied it, the more I became aware that our creativity, sometimes on purpose, but most of the time it's happenstance,
Mm,
gets gets squashed. And sadly, that happens a lot in school systems. So children, and especially nowadays, it was different when we were kids, right?
mhm,
That we had more free time and play time when we were young. And kids, as the decades have gone on, they have become more and more pressured to do more academic work and study for standardized tests. And those are, I love academics, and there are places where those kinds of tests can serve a purpose, but to rely on them too much and to focus on too much of the academics in exclusion to the creative uh, directions in the arts, so to speak, then something is lost in childhood. We need that playful, imaginative, and creative space to learn about ourselves. And actually, there's tremendous amount of background study on how we learn through our play. So when you take the play away, when you take the art away, when you take the imaginative opportunities away from children, then it's interrupting their learning. We all were able to learn the academic parts, some subjects better than other subjects, but that's just natural for everybody. We would learn it better, I believe, if play and creativity and imagination were brought together. So inside of our educational systems, we are distanced from our creativity. We are pushed away from our ability to play during the day. We had recess when I was in school, twice a day, or I don't know how many times a day. We were outside screaming, yelling, running around. We're burning off, especially us boys, we were just burning off a lot of that crazy energy that we couldn't handle when we were sitting in those desks in the school, right? In the classroom. So that was built into the system. The educators knew that kids needed to run around and scream and yell and do all those things outside and then come back inside and work for a while and then go scream and yell and play at another recess. So when those things are kept away from people, from children, then their learning style is interrupted. And I have found that even if it's interrupted, that quality of creativity is still there. It can't go anywhere. It's still inside of us as part of our human nature, so to speak. So it's just a matter of helping people dig around inside their mind and inside their heart to find out how to get back to what they might have been interested in playing the guitar or the piano when they were 8 or 9, and that they just got too busy. Which is sounds kind
Okay.
of wacky,
Hmm.
but sure enough, kids are they have a lot on their plates these days. So
Okay.
I just encourage people to rediscover what is actually already there, but they've just basically forgotten about it.
I get you. It's like you already have it, but for unknown reasons or for reasons you cannot explain, you've gotten away from it, and somehow now you're saying that it's not lost. Maybe you have misplaced it and gone into another direction, but your creativity or exercising your creativity, you can rediscover it. Am I correct basically by saying it that way?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
now, I know my wife will enjoy listening to this particular interview because she retired from the school system here in Durham, North Carolina, and she often talked about where the system is going. You know,
Mm,
we're so focused on these standardized tests and, and forget all about the creativity that's of students and allowing students to have a little bit more freedom and take all this pressure off of them. So I know where you're coming from. I hear it from her
yes.
all the time. Now, what I do want to know from you is a lot of us, including myself, wonder, can it be taught? You know, is is there any outline or anything that can say, look, I need to be more creative. So what can I do?
Sure. That's a great question, and I'm asked it a lot. And and right when you said it, my first feeling to my first the first thing that popped into my head was no, it can't be taught because one, you already know it. All right? And let me back up a little bit. So
Mhm.
think of either uh, going to a playground right now and seeing a bunch of 5-year-olds out there, and would it be what would it be like walking up to them and asking them, how did you learn how to play? And they'd look at you like, what?
Hmm.
What are you talking about? I know nobody taught me how to play. I just know what to do. And that is part of it. I think I think what people need is that I have plenty of exercises that can help people get back into the qualities and the flow of being creative. But I think part of the biggest uh, thing to say is to remember that we have it inside of us already. That when that 5-year old that you were and I was a few years ago, in some ways they're still inside of us, and they still remember what what to do to really play. So there's a few blocks in people's way now as adults that they say, oh, I can't do that anymore. Oh, that's just for kids, or that's not very useful. And, how could I use that in my job? That doesn't make any sense. But all those things are not true. I believe that creativity a is a gold mine for people to rediscover inside of themselves, that is just waiting to help them in their job, in their family life, with their kids, with their grandkids, whatever situation that they're in. And I'm talking about both levels of creativity that I described: the general creativity and then the specialized creativity. Specialized creativity is when we're playing the guitar, when we're writing music, when we're singing, when we're dancing, when we're
Hmm.
making a painting. All those, they're specialized. We all know that there's something very different about that kind of creativity than there is about choosing a new way to drive to work,
Hmm.
right? So
Okay.
so I firmly believe that we can all reconnect to it, right?
Hmm.
It can't be lost, but it's just misplaced. It's like having having let's see, let's let me think. I'm looking for a hammer that was my dad's. And I know I brought it back when after he died, and I brought a bunch of things back, and I'm thinking, where did I leave that hammer? And I think, oh, it's down in the basement, and it's in a closet, and it's in a box, and that box is underneath a whole bunch of other boxes. That's kind of what has happened to our creativity.
Hmm.
We had
Okay.
it years ago, but
Okay.
we put it in a box
And
in a
stored it away.
basement and stowed it away.
I got
So
you.
it's our job to think, okay,
Hmm.
where is that? And part
Okay.
of thinking of where is it is hell, I want people to explore the idea of, think of when you were 5 or 6 or 7. Those are good ages.
Hmm.
And think of what you did on after school or on Saturday or all summer vacation. What was the thing that you got up in the morning and you couldn't wait to do? That's where you start.
I
Whatever
love.
that is,
I got you.
yeah.
I got you. I love that because I'm so reminded of what you said when we first started about traveling, going in one direction, and then deciding to come back another direction. My my granddaddy was a pastor
Mm,
for many years. I was young, small, used to ride with him to church, and he would most of the time try to find another way to come back. And
mm,
I was so excited about that because I got to see something new. You know, I didn't
Totally.
I didn't see the same thing all the time every time I went with him. So saying what you said was really, really, really interesting. Let me kind of dwell a little bit more with this
Mm,
creativity because I'm thinking about folks who are listening to this podcast and who may be thinking, how can I get there? So my question to you is, can anyone be creative?
absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
And this is the main thing that one of the main things, there are several, there are quite a few things, but one of the main things when people they put up a block right away and they say, well, I can't paint the Mona Lisa. I can't write, you know, like a famous author can. You know, of course not.
Mm-hmm.
You're not that person. You're you. You have something unique to make. So I encourage people not to think, okay, yes, I might be able to start being creative, but then they stop themselves and say, oh no, I can't do that because
Mm-hmm.
I want to paint, but I can't paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good grief. One person could do that, and
Mm-hmm.
they did it 500 years ago. Let's do something new. Let's do something that you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Let's explore let's explore how you paint.
I got you. That's the
And,
cre-
and
that's the creativity.
that's the creativity.
I
Coming
got you.
coming
I
straight from your heart.
I got you. I got you. I know there are people listening to this podcast who, when they hear your conversation and what we're talking about, will probably step back and say, you know, how am I going to be able to do it? And you have already ex- explained that they can do it, but they're still feeling like I can't. Because my podcast is about encouraging,
Mm.
inspiring, and transforming, what would you say to them that will be encouraging, inspiring to them? Like, yes, you can get up, and how would you deal with that?
That's a great question. And I'm very enthusiastic about encouraging people to explore. And one of the best ways, I believe, is to get a journal. And a journal is something that you can I encourage people to write in it every day.
Mm,
Put the date at the top of the page and then write. Even if you think I don't have anything to write about it. Start it with I feel and fill in the blank
mm,
and just keep writing. Or I'm thinking about this and then fill in the blank. Just keep asking yourself some questions to encourage you to write. But the writing, the journaling, is about yourself and your thoughts and your feelings. And let's say that you're wanting to be more creative. Then use the journaling each day to ask yourself, how am I creative? What do
mm,
I want to create? What interests me? Do I want to try painting? Do I want to
mm,
try writing? Do I want to teach? Do I want to learn how to play the piano? Or I used to play the piano and I
mm,
want to get back into it. How do I do that? What should I ask yourself questions and then answer them? And you'll start to build up a conversation with yourself. And it's only with you. Nobody ever gets to see it unless you ask them to.
mhm,
Yeah, I've kept a journal for 25 years now. My wife she did journaling and she encouraged me to. It's
mm.
one of the best things I've ever done in my
Okay.
life. So
Okay.
it's a place that you can explore, you can ask questions, you can answer questions, and it's all about your process,
I
whatever that.
love it. I love it. I love it. Listeners, hang on. Don't go any place right now. Got a couple of more questions that I want to ask of Patrick Williams. But first, I want to ask Patrick, how can listeners of this podcast get in more information about you or
You
get
bet.
in contact with you?
That-
Tell us, give us some information, website, whatever it is.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Sure. I I have a bunch of websites. I have two art websites, and I have a essentially a business innovation website. So it's where I can do consultancies and people hire me to do creativity work. That is that site is patrickwilliamsstaycreative.com.
All right.
And my websites are patrickwilliams.com is one art site. And then my other art site is celebrationflowerpaintings.com. But there's a lot more on that site than just uh, flowers.
Okay.
So those are three sites, and I
All
have
right.
two Instagram sites, PMW Creativity and PMW / camera. So I post every day a piece of artwork on those two sites.
You know how people are. Sometimes they forget everything that has been said. So if they plug in Google or Patrick Williams, the creator, and all that stuff, would you come up?
Yes,
Okay.
I come up, put in uh, Patrick Williams Stay Creative,
Okay.
and that website should
All
come up.
right. Okay. That's good. You know how
Yeah.
we are. You
Oh
know,
yeah, I am.
we don't get it. We don't get it all. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You talk about a lot, and uh, as we've been interviewing and going back and forth. So I want to ask this question because I did see it somewhere in your profile, and that is there a difference between being innovative and being creative?
That is a super great question. And I've thought about it a lot. And for a long time, well, I still think that it's almost the same.
Okay.
And obviously the innovative part is often more on the business side, but there are lots and lots of artists uh, who have been innovative, that they've changed uh, how we think about music or how we think about painting. That's they're innovative. They just have that little spark in them to make us think about things
Okay,
differently.
let me stop you here because you gave me the definition of creativity.
Kind of.
Okay, well, yeah, kind of. So, what would you say the definition is of innovation?
Yeah. Again, a good question, and it's tricky. It really is so close.
Okay,
Innovation is approaching approaching something approaching an idea that is needing to be solved
okay.
in a completely new way,
Mm, I
which
like
is
that.
which is kind of like creativity.
Mm, I like that. I like. Would you say that innovative is more technical? Am I?
Yeah,
Is that a good word?
probably. I think so.
Okay,
I think that's a safe, good,
okay,
positive
okay.
differentiation. Yeah.
I love this conversation.
Yeah.
This is really interesting today. I'm gonna ask you this last question, and then kind of let you go. Uh, if one, is there, but they kind of falling off a little bit, what they can they do to stay creative?
Again, that's a good question. And all I think two things. One is back to the my previous answer of journaling, because the journaling will keep it fresh,
Okay.
right? And the second one is what I said, and then it sparked your memory of your grandfather
Mm-hmm.
of think of things, and it doesn't have to be super big, but think of things to do in a slightly different way. And it's surprising the things that can happen. And especially those things like driving back home from church or driving to work. That seems like it's not going to be very big, but that will do something new. Take walks. There
Mm-hmm.
are so many artists and inventors and innovators who had a daily walking practice
Mm.
and don't necessarily walk the same path every day. Choose another path, go in a different direction, explore. As odd as it sounds, drive across town, get out in a park that you've never been to and walk around that park, or do something
Mm.
completely unusual. The key, one of the keys to being an artist is looking for new ways to experience things.
Mm. Well
Looking
said.
at, yeah,
Well said.
reading a new book, watching a new movie, reading some different poetry,
Mm.
uh, taking a walk in another place in the city, or going on a little day trip someplace,
Well
just to
said.
keep just to keep our mind and our heart fresh and open to new experiences.
Well said. Well said. Patrick, you've been an awesome guest today, and I want to thank you. And there you have it, Patrick Williams, who is a master teacher, who enjoys great conversations and assisting folk reconnecting with their core creative selves. What an awesome guest. And I want to thank him uh, so very much for agreeing to be a guest on this podcast. And until next time, peace and blessings be with each of you.